Hello, welcome back to Rory's Workshop. Thank you so much for swinging on by. Today we've got something a little bit more exciting. We've got our new project, Project P, Project Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. And here she is, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. We've come out into the middle of absolutely nowhere, just north of Tyre, in between Tyre and Riyadh really is the next major city, to show you this. We've had it a few weeks and we're learning as we're going. I've never had a Toyota FJ and neither has Phil. This is a joint venture between me and Phil and just something to play around with. I've got some complaints in the past for me buying a British car in Saudi Arabia, so now I've bought a Saudi Arabian. No, I haven't. I bought a Japanese car in Saudi Arabia, which seems more fitting. It has been extensively modified by the previous owners, notably the lack of top half of the door. This has been cut off and then folded and professionally, very loose term, formed, and it works really well. She's 1983 with a 4.2 2F engine. Straight 6, which runs quite well, but like anything it just needs a little bit of TLC. We've had it a couple of weeks now, just so we get to learn the car, learn its niggles and get in contact with some parts suppliers, which thankfully we found relatively local. The plan is for this is we're going to completely rewire it because it keeps blowing headlight fuses, so we can't use it at night really. But we will just tinker away. We've got new brakes for it. It needs a whole new brake system. The engine, everything needs servicing. Like anything in Saudi Arabia, it doesn't get looked after too well, but this one will hopefully change its life a bit. The intention is to get this one running really well, and then we'll may buy another one, so we've got one each, and then we will probably bring these back to the UK. These are quite common in the classic car scene. There are a couple around, so if you do want one, you fancy one for yourself back in the UK or anywhere in the world, let me know and I will endeavour to help you out as much as I can, and we can ship all over the world, so that isn't an issue. Back to ours. So ours has the 2F. It has the 4-speed transmission in it. Originally there's pictures in here that it would have had the 3-speed, but with it being an 84 it would have had the 4-speed. It has drum brakes all round, but which are okay, but we need to rebuild it. The transmission handbrake is on the back of the gearbox, same as a Land Rover, but similar to a Land Rover, this one is woeful. But we'll get back to that later. Our engine is a 4.2 straight 6 2F engine, which runs quite well. It's just developed a misfire on the way here. I suspect it'll be the leads because it's only under load. A little bit more about how we got this. We ended up buying it in Jeddah. You all know where Jeddah is. We've been there many a time. And it was running quite well. Naturally, it was a bit of a roadkill thing. Once we started heading back towards Tyre, we were losing electricity at a great rate of knots. Obviously, it was dark when we were coming back, so we had the lights on. And we didn't have an alternator that was working. So we managed to limp it with no headlights on whatsoever. I was driving this and following the Discovery along the back roads that we need to get there. Managed to get it through a police checkpoint and get pulled over, but I showed them the paperwork that I have and everything was okay. But this alerted them and they sent one car out just as we were pulling away, and there's another car loitering with intent. So I'll show you what happens next, where we pulled into a garage to buy a new battery. No matter where you are in Saudi Arabia, you can always make some friends. I love it. Okay, brilliant. Somehow we managed to get through the police checkpoint with this running on some cylinders. I can't guarantee how many. The battery's let go, and so is the alternator. So we were coughing and spluttering, and naturally I got pulled over. I can't understand why, but thankfully I thought there was a garage here, and it's just, is it midnight? What time is it? It's late. Thankfully the garage is still open, so we've just managed to bargain for a new battery.
We bought a lemon.
We haven't bought. This is way out of lemons, Lord. So we've just got a new battery, which is much bigger than the one that we've just taken off. We're going to, where it's thrown on, it turns over really fast and really well. And hopefully I might have some lights, because I've just driven the past 50 mile.
Past 45, 50 minutes easy.
Without any lights whatsoever. And if I press the horn, it turned the ignition off and it would backfire, which was hilarious. But hopefully we've now got a battery so we can get home. Right, we'll catch up with you a bit later on. So, oh God, look at this. The things you see when you break down in random... We haven't broken down, we just stopped to get some electricity. We just have to buy it. Look at that bear! If I could get away with taking that to Blighty, I would. Right, so there's a new battery. The terminals, these are all going to get replaced because these are not well. But we're now going to drive up the hill. Going to drive up the hill, go to bed. I'll see you in a little bit. So once we got up the escarpment, I managed to get away from the police. We managed to get home, but we didn't. About 1 kilometre away from home, we could see the light, we could see the buildings of where our accommodation is. The engine just died. I was driving, I thought it might have been running out of fuel because we hadn't filled it up since Jeddah. But as it turns out, the negative wire on the coil had fallen off. But I didn't find that out until the day after we'd towed this the kilometre home into our accommodation. Much to the delight of all the security personnel that we have guarding us. They loved it. I've never seen so many people come out at 2 o'clock in the morning to see a Discovery towing an FJ. But the week after, we managed to buy a new alternator, and we've fitted the correct size belts, because this car takes the wider, fatter belts rather than the standard sort of Discovery single V belts. This takes the more agricultural belt, which I prefer really, especially on something like this where you're going to be in the middle of nowhere. A bit more girth never went amiss. Another thing that we have on this is not the standard power steering pump. We have the original one. This is a god-awful GM unit that has been bastardized to fit, and it doesn't fit. The pulleys aren't in line. It comes and goes when it wants, even though it's full of fluid. But we will get there. I'm looking for a rebuild kit for the power steering for the original one, and hopefully we can get that running and get it back soon. And that's about it for the engine bay. It's fairly agricultural. It runs really well. It'll sit at 100 kilometers an hour quite comfortably, but we'll show you all the other little issues that this car has. So some of the issues that this car has, and it has only minor things, is obviously the brakes. We went off-roading a couple of weeks ago. We managed to get stuck, or Phil managed to get stuck, and the brakes weren't up to how you would expect. So to that end, we're going to replace all the brakes. And actually, now's a good opportunity for us to change, because the cars out here use .3. I want to convert it to .4. With when it goes back to the UK, we can still get good supply of fluid, although it's been a bit of a pain here. It also weeps from the swivels. We have the new seals and everything for it, but it's just one of those things. We're just going to play with it. It's just going to be a little plaything. Other issues are it doesn't have a door handle. Both sides of the door handles don't work, so we have some beautifully fabricated door pulls, thanks to Mick. They work really well. And it's a bit of added security. People can't get in, although they can climb over, but they don't do that. No. So the interior then, it's probably as sparse as you can get. The only gauge that works on the gauge cluster is the ammeter, which was how we knew the alternate wasn't kicking out too well, let alone the dim lights. None of the other switches work apart from this one, which is for the auxiliary lights, and the horn works really well. I detest that horn. But apart from that, it has one piece of carpet, which is around the transmission. I wouldn't know if it was doing any good. I haven't lifted it because I'm too scared. These seats are really good. I said no one ever, because they fall forward if nobody's sat in them. And as I said before, because it's an 83, it doesn't have seatbelts. It wasn't legislation in 83 in Saudi Arabia for cars to have seatbelts, although it is in 84. I've had a couple of fines already, which have managed to be overturned because of the age of the car. We will be fitting seatbelts. We're just debating which ones to have. We can't have the 3-point because of there's nothing to bolt it to. We can have lap belts, but the cameras that are here in Saudi Arabia look for the diagonal across the body. We may put a bar in across the back so we can have harnesses, which would be a bit safer, but we will see. Time will tell. At the moment, we're just enjoying the car for what it is. In the back, we have our traditional Saudi Arabian carpet, complete with seats and some recovery gear. And it's similar to a Series 3, but it's so much better. The ride in this compared to a Series 3 is phenomenal. I much prefer driving this off-road than a Series 3 getting bounced around to buggery. But we'll show you that in a little bit. Another issue that we have back here is the spare tyre has a huge crack in the sidewall, and it's obviously flat. The number plate lights on the rear work by Bluetooth because the wiring is here. That'll get sorted soon, but we have fitted many shiny things. I admire my shiny ball. Meg has got nothing on me. This is so Phil can tow his motorbike on the trailer, and we will be attaching trailer electrics when we do the whole rewire. And that's, oh, the rear doors, they're welded together. These should open up, a bit like the spare wheel carrier. And then the doors should also open. However, ours have been welded together some time ago and then painted over many times. But we're looking to we have a roof of sorts and sticks of sorts, but we're looking to put original doors back on, or at least have them, so we have the possibility of adding them in. And rear doors. The rear doors on this should be full size with canvas at the top, but obviously ours doesn't. We will be adding a jerry can onto the back because this can consume a great amount of petrol. But it's just simplicity at its finest. I love it. I wish I could drive it every day, but we have to fight Phil. Phil's a lot bigger than me. That's about it. Let's go for a drive, shall we? So I'll show you how smoothly she runs and show you the prowess that Priscilla has in the desert. Pistol grip. Love it, love it, love it. Right, back in a minute. I brake really hard, Priscilla keeps giving me stuff.
Bloody hell.
How was that? So if you've never seen an FJ before, we've parked it at a precarious angle, because I can. Although it won't look like it in the camera. I'll show you the between high range and low range of the FJs by doing this. So at the moment we're in low range first. So we'll just come down off of this. Nice under control. So between low range and high range, you push the lever to the left. That's now high range. Well, we're in high range 4-wheel drive. The Land Cruisers, or the FJs, have the selectable 2- and 4-wheel drive. So if you push the gearbox forward, it'll go into, he says, it'll just slip into high range 2-wheel drive. And then you can do more drifts. But we'll take you for a drive around. and just show you the quirks of being in it. It's going off a fairly decent bump.
No problem.
No. And there's no, like in a Series 3 would be fine on this, or a Series 2, having raced a couple at some speed in the past, the Series 3 would be ragging its nuts off. And the ride wouldn't be as smooth, but I love Land Cruisers, don't get me wrong, but this Land Cruiser is something else. Nice and smooth. And there's so much torque in this engine. When I drove at the escarpment, I didn't come out of top gear. I didn't need to. The amount of torque in this engine goes for days, which is why it's so good at little drifts. So I've nipped out into Tyre to grab some bits and bobs for the FJ, did roller cap and odds and sods. And this has happened. The bloody car's broken down. But it's okay, don't worry. Phil has arrived and set up camp. Daz is off to get some kanafa for us. And Mick is on the way in the D2 with all my tools, so I can whip off the starter motor and have a look, because at the moment it's just not playing ball. So I've taken off the starter motor. Do you want to see what's wrong? So that is not meant to be like that, and down here you might be able to see that the bearing has collapsed and it's totally shafted, so it's stopping the starter cog from going back in. So even if, and it looks like it's been doing it for a while, because round here is broken off and what have you. But luckily, just up the road is some spare parts places, so we're going to go for a wander. Let's go. So we've arrived just up the road from the car, and this is what we've got. Have a look at this. It's like an old school parts place. Fan belts, and then all the parts, all down shelves, and it reminds me of just being in a really old car parts place. Probably a bit before my time, but there were some around when I was driving, or when I learned to drive. But generally they've got everything here, and it's cash. It's fantastic. Hopefully he's got one. If not, there's two others next door, so I'm not too worried. Thankfully these are fairly common out here, but that is burgered. Wait for him to come back. Bye.
They don't have one.
Hang on. No, I don't want to go on. We're not cooking on gas yet.
They don't have one.
Now we are.
They don't have one.
So I've crossed over the road because
He didn't have one.
he didn't have one. So we've come across to this one. Look at this.
Fancy.
There's a lot of Hyundai bits and some Toyota bus down there. He's had a look at our starter motor and ran off at great rate of knots. Hopefully he'll come back with one. Oh, there's a steel rim down there, brand new one. But we don't need one, we need a starter motor. If we can't find one here, I think the scrapyard that we went to a couple of weeks ago has an FJ, and I think it still has its motor. Shouldn't shake that. I'll let you know in a minute. So unfortunately that car parts place didn't have one, so Phil is off to the scrapyard that we know and love, and I am going to strip down the starter motor to try and get the bearing. There's a ball bearing just popped out. Try and get it back in, because it only needs to start the engine once. because we can get a new one probably tomorrow, inshallah. We also have Mick here. He's here.
Hello.
Providing security and laughing at my demise. See you in a bit. So I've managed to whack the ball bearing back in, and it comes out and drops back in fairly smoothly. Well, as smoothly as what you can expect from having a really knackered bearing. So I'm going to throw this in. It only needs to start the car once. We'll tidy up the seats. Phil will still get the other starter motor, so at least we've got one that may be good. But I reckon that one could be better. He'll probably test it anyway. But we'll chuck this one back in, get it running again. Job will be a fish. Starter motor's back on. Let's give the world. She lives! Let's get out of here! See you in a bit. Project P, Project Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I have to do the dance again, don't I?